Okay, just a second more. So it's turned off, which is a good thing. जय जिनेंद्र बच्चों, आई होप यू कैन हियर मी आउट। और आज हम बहुत अच्छा टॉपिक करने वाले हैं, लेकिन उससे पहले लेट अस स्टार्ट विथ नवकार मंत्र। सो सम्या गेशना विल टेक द लीड। आप दोनों नवकार मंत्र बोलें। सिद्धाय नमो आर्याय नमो उवजायानम नमो लोए सवसाहुनम ऐसो पंच नमोकारो सव पावपनाशनो मंगलानं च सवेसिम पढ़मम हवै मंगलम। जय जिनेन्द्र बच्चों, आज हम दो बहुत अच्छे टॉपिक पढ़ने वाले हैं। एक तो कंटिन्यूटी ऑफ अवर लेक्चर सीरीज ऑन कल्याणक। तो सबसे पहले सम्यक आप मुझे बताओ कितने कल्याणक होते हैं। 5 होते हैं। नाम बताएंगी एशना। एशना विल टेल मी द फर्स्ट टू कल्याणक। गुड जॉब, एशना ने मुझे सारे बता दिए। हाँ, तो अभी तक हमने लास्ट क्लास में गर्भ कल्याणक के बारे में पढ़ा, जन्म कल्याणक के बारे में पढ़ा और तप कल्याणक के बारे में, राइट। तो अब मुझे आप बताओ कि कौन से कल्याणक में तीर्थंकर नाम के कर्म उदय वाला जीव नग्न मुनि दशा अपनाते हैं। Why, what is the kalyanak when they get the renunciate their clothes and achieve the muni status? Tap. Which kalyanak is that? Tap kalyanak. So tap kalyanak, and Ishna is on the camera now. So let's see if she's smiling or not. But so Ishna, what is the number of the tap kalyanak? Third in the series, right? So what happens before Tap Kalyanak? What Kalyanak happens before the Tap Kalyanak? I see. And let me ask you one question. Who comes, when the Bhagwan baby is born, and what do they do? Can you tell me, Ishna? What happens when the Bhagwan baby is born? And okay, थोड़ा तेज बोलो, speak loudly. Mm-hmm. To, yes, some mountain. Which mountain is that? Samir, which mountain is that? Sumeru Parvat. Very good. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I see. Awesome. And so is it just the Devis who go there, or Devs and Devis, right? And who is the leader of the Dev? Who preside over this ceremony? What's his? Saudharmendra. Very good. And who is the Indrani? What's the name? Shachi Indrani. Right. So Saudharmendra and Shachi Indrani comes. And how many kalashas are used for 1008? Good job. You didn't let me finish the question, but that's okay. So it's 1008, right? So they use one. And what is that ocean from where they get the water? Sher Sagar. Ishna knows all the answers. Super good, Ishna. You are very intelligent, it looks like. I'm sure other kids are too, but good job. You know your lesson right. Okay. So the baby is born, and then he grows up to be a prince, right? Because he's born in that, the king's family. So that's what happens. Get it, that's okay. That's what happens, right? So now the question is, okay, so we are using the story of Bhagwan Rishabdev, right? Who is the first Tirthankar to continue with um, to continue with the Panch Kalyanak. But these Panch Kalyanak happens for all the Tirthankars, correct? And all the Tirthankars have their own Kalyanaks. But you tell me, where was Rishabdev, the baby Rishabdev was born? Which city was that? Ayodhya. Good job. And UK? So he was born in Ayodhya, right? Now, so the palace of the queen was located in the city Ayodhya, right? Now, let's move on to the next Kalyanak, which is the Tap Kalyanak, right? Now, let's talk about the Tap Kalyanak. Uh, Ashna, tell me one thing. Uh, where who was the first one? Who was the first one that uh, you know uh, yes, carried the palanquin, the swan palanquin? Yes, good thing. You are able to think of what I am thinking, right? So who was the first one? Huh? No, before the Saudharm Hind, some king who was recently made the king. Hint, hint. He carried the palanquin first. Bharat Chakravarti. Good job. And who is Bharat Chakravarti? Okay. And what is his relationship with Rishabdev Samya? He's the son. Bharat Chakravarti is the son. Okay. Okay. Now let me ask you one more question. So what happens, right? Where do they take the palanquin? Or a forest? Or forest? Good job, Ishna. You remember everything about the story. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so what happens when Prince Rishabdev reaches the forest somewhere? He he renunciates from the worldly pleasures. Okay, very good. Takes off his clothes and then takes meditation. Okay, and what is that ceremony called? Very good. So that's Tap Kalyanak. So before Tap Kalyanak, we talk about the Prince Rishabdev, right? Now what is he, Ashna? After Tap, what is the Muni Rishabdev, right? So now he has attained Digambaratva, right? That is, he has become a Digambar Muni, right? Now he goes around, uh, you know, the forest and to the cities, and he focuses on his meditation, right? His dhyan, and he tries to enrich his, state of meditation dhyan further and further and further, and he only eats when he has to eat, otherwise he doesn't eat, right? That's what munis are. There are two things that munis carry. What are those two things? Good job. So that is what Muni Rishabdev carries. Now let's proceed to the next Kalyanak, which is going bound to happen in his life, because this Jeev, who is now Muni Rishabdev, is going to soon become Arihanta Rishabdev and then Siddha Rishabdev, right? So how does he get from Muni Rishabdev to Arihanta Rishabdev is going to be the topic of today's story. Okay, and we are actually going to do two stories today. One is the story of uh, completing the subject of Kalyanaks and Ravan. Good job. So let's start with this one. Let me get to the start of the story.
Up till now, we learned about Tirthankar Bhagwan's Garb, Jan, and Tap Kalyanak. So now, our baby Tirthankar, God Adinath, grew up and became Prince Adinath. And after Tap Kalyanak, he became a monk. So now, let's find out that after turning monk, what he did, which was the next Kalyanak in his life. Well, the next Kalyanak that happened was Gyan Kalyanak. When he gained Keval Gyan, he attained infinite knowledge, which is a super knowledge that gives a person the knowledge of the universe on his own. So, after he became a monk, Lord Adinath practiced a lot of austerities and penance. He went deep into the jungles to
Tap.
meditate.
He did
But
lot
for
of tap.
what?
Okay.
For his soul, for the purity of his soul. After many days, he would go to the town for ahar, meaning food. That ahar too, he would take only whatever was given, and that too in very little quantity. Why would he do that? Well, to do tap, meaning religious penance, to shed his karmas, to win over his desires, so he would stay in blissful state of his soul. Sometimes in hot summers he would meditate on top of the hills, and sometimes in chilly winter nights he would meditate in yogasana near the banks of rivers. While meditating there, the purity of his soul started increasing, and gradually he started shedding his karmas. And then he did a special and the purest form of meditation, which is known as Shukla Dhyan.
Okay, so we take first pause here. So there is a word being introduced called as Shukla Dhyan. What is it? Shukla Dhyan. Now this is a very good extra knowledge for you to have. There are four type of dhyan. How many type of dhyan? Use your fingers and tell me. Four. Okay. Now there are four type of dhyans that any jeev does. Okay, all through their life. Now, two of those dhyans are considered as inauspicious, that is Ashubh dhyan, and two others are considered as Shubh dhyan. Okay, Shubh yani auspicious dhyan. Okay, so because though, okay, I'll tell you. So, what are these inauspicious dhyans? They are named as Arti dhyan, okay, and Raudra dhyan, okay. So when we are like in thoughts, like when I'm sitting in this class, and not in this class, let's say I'm sitting on the dining table and I'm thinking about general matters of my life, right? Or I'm continuously thinking about what do I have to do next. I'm planning my day, and I'm doing, like, let's say, studies, general studies, focusing on my math or science or whatever general things. Then that could be is arti, right? That that is a dhyan which is inauspicious, in the sense that it is increasing my worldly desires. It is towards my worldly desires or worldly plans. It's not towards a process of enrichment which will take me to the state of salvation, right? I'm talking about the general affairs, right? Raudra dhyan is more like, i'm I'm doing this dhyan like I got into a bad situation, and I'm angry, and I'm thinking about, like, how can I get rid of this person, or how can I get rid out of this situation, and trying to, doing different vikalps to get out of that situation, right? Or thinking about taking revenge from some person. That is what you call as Raudra Dhyan. Raudra Dhyan. What do you call it as? Raudra Dhyan, right? So these two, as you can see, are towards your worldly desires, right? I want to do this next, and then do that, then do that. That's all. So that's inauspicious. Got it, Ishna? Right? Auspicious is one that takes you towards the path of salvation, or something that takes you one step closer towards moksha. है ना? So what are, now let's talk about what are the two auspicious dhyan. One is called as your dharma dhyan, and other is shukla dhyan. Dharma dhyan is, we are sitting in this class, and if we are focusing here, dhyan means focusing here, right? And we are learning new things about Jainism, which is going to give us more good karma, then it is considered as dharma dhyan. For example, when you go to temple and do Pakshal Puja, while you are doing Pakshal Puja, if you are keeping your focus in that activity, right? Not like, hey, what should I do when I go out? I'll play. I'm feeling hungry. I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling cold. I'm feeling hot. I'm feeling uh, thirsty. That's not dharma dhyan. Dharma dhyan is Hey, what is there in Jinwani? Let me read it. Let me understand it. Let me memorize it. That's dharma, right? Or when we do donations, or we have great thoughts about doing donation for towards dharma, right? The four donations that we have in Jainism, right? That is dharma. Thinking about them, right? Continuously thinking about meditating, noodling over that thought, that's dharma. Then the most pristine dhyan, which is what happens, and that's something we talk about here. Shukla dhyan, right? So we learned about four dhyans, two inauspicious and two auspicious. The two inauspicious are Arth dhyan and Raudra dhyan, and two auspicious are Dharam Dhyan and Shukla Dhyan. When you keep doing Shukla Dhyan, which is like thinking inward, just focusing on your soul, just not worrying about anything going around you, and you keep enriching that Shukla Dhyan further and further and further and further, that's when you reach Keval Dhyan. So when the Muni Rishabdev is sitting under this tree and meditating and just focusing upon his own soul, not even his body, that is what Shukla Dhyan is, and continuously enriching it, enriching it, the grade of the Dhyan, the meditation leads to Keval Dhyan, right? So it's a lot of hard work because you have to take away your attention from all outwardly things. There may come a small ant and bite you. There may come a big prince and may do surg on you. Maybe there comes a snake and makes a small you know snake hill, or these termites come and make those hills around you. You don't worry about that. There are these creepers that keeps you know grows on your legs and your hands and all through your body. You don't worry about it, right? That's Shukla. And when you are able to do that for a long period, and you are able to reach that state of enrichment, that's when Keval Dhyan, right? So that is next. So you know about Shukla Dhyan now, right? You know about the four Dhyans. Name them. First is Ar, Rodr, Rodr, yeah, बोलो पूरा बोलो. And then the third one is Dharm Dhyan, and fourth one is Eshu would remember these. Promise? Promise? You will remember this? See, you have to focus. You have to do Dharm Dhyan. When you do Dharm Dhyan, your Jnana Varni karms and Darshana Varni karma, all these karmas are they are addressed. They go away, right? So you that's what you have to focus on. Okay? So let's move on.
What was the name? Shukla Dhyan, yes. And
What was the
through
name?
this purest form of meditation called Shukla Dhyan, he shed all his karmas and he attained Keval Gyan, the grand infinite knowledge to know each and everything in this universe.
Right?
And he became Arihant, whom you bow
Oh,
down to
so now
in
what happened? He just became Arihant. So now, when he gets Keval Gyan, so what is the state? What is that one thing that Muni has to get to gain the status of Arihant, and that is Keval Gyan, right? So Shukla Gyan, Dhyan is what they do to get Keval Gyan. Okay, so Keval Gyan is the infinite knowledge, the omniscience, the knowing everything as it is, right? We know about the different gyans, correct, Ishna? We know about Mati, Shrut, and Avdhi, correct? These are the three gyans that a Bhagwan is born with, right? Tirthankar is born with. Then, when they attain the Muni Dasha, the other dhyan the other gyan that happens, the knowledge that they gain is man pariyaya gyan. What is man pariyaya gyan? What is man pariyaya gyan? Ishna, do you know what is man pariyaya gyan? Okay, let me tell you. Man pariyaya, that is, I can read your mind. I can go beyond your mind. Okay, not just your mind now, but what are you thinking now, what you will think later, what you will have thought about. That's manipulation, knowing about reading other person's mind. And that is what happens with Muni, right? They start getting that that kind of knowledge. That is called as Manoparya. Right? So in the beginning, Tirthankars are born because they have the Tirthankar Namkarm, that Jeev is born with three gyans. What are those three gyans? Avadhi, Shrut, very good, Shrut, Avadhi, and Mati. So Shrut is knowledge by virtue of scriptures. Avadhi is knowledge of all the states of the matter, past, present, and future. Okay, and Mati is wisdom, knowledge by virtue of your own analysis and sense, right? So this is important. You may have Shrut Gyan because you are reading a book, right? But you may not have wisdom. So your goal should be to also get Mati Gyan, the application of knowledge. That is what Mati Gyan is about. And Manuparya Gyan is beyond that. That's about reading other people's mind, right? And then after that, the final state, once they do immense Shukla Dhyan, most purest of the Shukla Dhyan, they get Kevala Dhyan, which is the knowledge, which is when the Dhyan Kalyanak is supposed to happen. Okay, so let's go forward.
Namo Arihantanam every day. The moment Indras, meaning celestial gods, got to know that God has achieved Keval Gyan, they went with their entire family to Purim Talpur city to worship. Do you know? Before Indra came to visit God,
Purim
Dhanpati
Talpur.
Kuber, meaning the celestial god who was super rich, had done a beautiful and huge setup. Tell me, what is this congregation known as?
Okay, who's going to tell me what is this congregation known as? Go ahead, Deshna. Good job, Samosharan. And correct. Good job, good job. Very nice. 12 different sections where people and other. Is it just people? Is it just you? Devis. Good job, good job. So now Samyak Samosharan. Who creates Samosharan? Kuber Dev. Okay, so it's not Swadharm Dev, it's Kuber Dev who creates the Samosharan. Who is it Swadharm Hindu creates? No. Who creates it? Oh, okay. Got it. So it's not Saudharmendra, but Kuber Dev who creates it. Let's move forward.
It's known as Samosharan. The Samosharan is made of huge Neelmani, meaning precious blue gemstones. It is a big setup that has about 20,000 steps. Its
How many
entrance
steps?
has
20,000.
beautiful lotus flowers on its parikha, meaning the water bodies. And
Parikha.
some places had natyashalas, theaters where female celestial gods dance to worship God. They dance in happiness and gratitude to celebrate the Keval Gyan of their Thankar god. On the top of the Samusharan, there is a special place where God is seated, which is called as Gandhkuti. In
Okay,
Gandh,
remember this word, okay? At the center of the Samosharan and a little bit higher, definitely way higher because there are 20,000 steps, so you can imagine how high it is. There is a inner sanctum sanctorum called as Gandhkuti. What is it called? Gandhkuti. Okay, kuti is a word used for hut in Hindi, so you can imagine it's a small place. Okay, but it is very very grand. Okay, so it's called as Gandhkuti, and it's not a hut. You are right, Ishna. But it's that's where Bhagwan is sitting, right? And as you can see in the picture, the Bhagwan is not exactly sitting on this singhasan. He is what do we call it? How many finger high? How many? Four finger high. He is four finger higher in the air. Okay. So he doesn't, you know why this is important? Because he doesn't have the parigraha even of the Singhasan. He is sitting where it is sitting. He is sitting. It is the Kuber who has created this big illusion, this grand structure called Samusha, right? So Bhagwan doesn't need it because Bhagwan has given up everything, right? It is just done so that other people can come in and can sit there in different places, and then they can get blessed with the knowledge that is the Vani, that is being coming out of Bhagwan's body, all his Pradesh, all the Pradesh of his body, not just his mouth, right? And the Vani that is converted by Gandhars into the different languages, right? So it is such a grand illusion, grand structure that is created. Okay, that is what you have to keep in mind. है ना बेटा? So now let's talk about this grand structure. Okay, so when this Gyan Kalyanak happens, the Bhagwan gets eight pratiharya. What do we call? Eight pratiharya. And these are eight symbols. Okay, which we'll learn about them. So one of them is, as you can see in the picture, is the Singhasan at the bottom. Then you see the Chhatra, right? The three Chhatra aura. Very good. So the Chhatra you are is made up of three parts, right? Wait, Krishna, we'll go there. So three parts, each representing a lok in the Lokakas, right? Do you know what are the three loks in the Lokakas, Samya? Samya? Not Gati. Mhm. Very good. Sometimes Devlok is also called as Urdhulok. Urdhulok means upper level, right? And then Madhyalok means middle world, and the Patal Lok means lower world. है So these ones. So these three signifies that. So yes, you are right, Ishna. So one is Singhasan, then you have Chhatra, then you have the Chavars, right? You see this, and Bhamandal is this aura around the Bhagwan's, face. Okay, and that one there, Ishna, is a Dundubi. What is it? Dundubi, right? One that makes plays the music. It's like a trumpet, grand trumpet. Yes, yes. And then you have this important thing which is behind, which is the Ashok Vraksh. Okay, it is called Ashok because Ashok, right? One that takes away all the sorrows. So when the human beings and animals and everyone is arriving to Sambhusharan, when they see this grand Ashok Vraksh, which is about uh, 12 times higher than the Bhagwan himself, okay, then their all sorrows, all their pains, the thoughts of their pains and sorrows go away, right? Because see, it is very important for, when these jeev arrive at Samosharan, they are bound to get salvation. They may not get it in this life, not in next life, but somewhere later. It all depends on what kind of dhyan they are doing while they are in Samosharan. It's like this: if you are in temple and you are still thinking about the outwardly things, Arth Dhyan and Rodra Dhyan, obviously you will not get the best karma on your side. So that happens with these common men also. So we were also in Samosharan, right? We were in Samosharan, but we were not paying attention. If we would have paid attention and done Shukla Dhyan, we would have been in the moksha and not being in this class. We would have already been in the state of, eternal bliss. But we didn't do that Shukla Dhyan, right? So we are yet here. That's why we have to focus on Shukla Dhyan, Dharm Dhyan as much as we can. That way only we can get to the next level. So Pratiharya, right? So we talked about these, and then Bhagwan's Vani itself, which is being, oozing out of his all Pradesh of his body. That is Vani, right? So this is one of the Pratiharyas, right? Chhatra Chamal Chavar Bhamandal Dhari. Ha. So these are only four, but there are more before that, which is Dundubi Asan Vani Shastra and the Pahupan, and then the showering of the flowers, right? Pahupan ki Varsha, right? That is also one prati. Okay. So let's keep going with this story. But this is important because this is part of the quiz.
And the goodie is a singhasan, meaning throne, which is
Throne.
made
Okay.
of precious stones, and around the four sides of throne is the Sri Mandap,
This
meaning
is the
a
Sri
place for
Mandap.
different
How many
people to
parts of
sit
Sri
and
Mandap?
worship Bhagwanji.
12.
Okay, tell me,
How
how
many
many
parts?
different areas are there around Bhagwan Sri Mandap for people to sit? Well, there are 12 different areas for everyone to sit. which is called as 12 sabhaएं, meaning 12 sub-congregations, in
Sabha,
which
है ना?
devis,
Council.
meaning celestial gods, humans, animals,
And
and
they all
even
sit
birds,
in different
etc., can
zones.
comfortably
है ना?
sit.
Different sabha.
And do you know one interesting fact? Everyone
So
is
that,
seated
okay,
encircling
Ishna is a very
God
good
with
question. Why do all the different jeev in their own sections? Now imagine there is a snake who arrives at Samosharan because that jeev is a very blessed jeev and he wants to also listen to the Vani of Bhagwan. Would you, Krishna, and let's say you are also there, would you like to sit next to a snake and still be able to focus on Bhagwan's Vani? How about a lion or a tiger? He is not going to do any bad to you. But what if a scorpion arrives next to you on this carpet? What happens to your state of dhyan? Right. So that is why. And what if there is this grand Kuber Dev who is sitting next to you? What would happen to you? He's a celebrity, right? Of the family. What will happen? Would you able to focus on Bhagwan's Vani? No. Yes. You'll be like, hey, how are my hairs? Are my hairs combed right? Am I wearing right kind of clothes and whatnot? Because we are human beings, right? Same thing can happen with a scorpion also. You know, a scorpion may come to the Samosharan, but he may say, oh, this elephant is next to me. What if he storms upon me? Right? What if he suddenly, sneezes? What will happen to me? Right? So to avoid those kind of Arth Dhyan and Rodra Dhyan thoughts, the Kuber creates these sabhas so that like-minded people are sitting in the same space and they don't have to worry about these aspects. Make sense? If you want to sit with elephant, you can, but then you will be worried. What if the elephant suddenly shakes his hand, right? So, okay, let's keep going. But good question, Ishna. Now you know the answer, right? You can tell it to other people also, right? If somebody asks, correct, Ishna? You can explain it better, right, Samyak?
that God's face is visible from all four sides. Okay, tell me, does God sit on top of his throne just the way we sit on a chair?
Mm-mm.
No, God sits 4 anguli above the throne in space.
Four finger, four
Right behind
anguli, है
God
ना?
is a beautiful tree which is called
What
Ashok
is this
tree,
tree called?
which by mere viewing gives a very good feeling, such that all sadness goes away. On
Hmm.
both sides, celestial gods of Yakshkumar family
These are Yaksh
dance with
Kumars.
64 chawars,
How many
meaning
chawars are there? How many? No, you were not paying attention. Dharm dhyan, do dharm dhyan, focus here. 64. How many? How many chawars are there in the hands of these Yaksh Kumars? 64. Okay, numbers are very important. Okay, that tells facts. है ना?
decorated props. Right behind God's head is a bright glowing area which is known as Bhamandal.
What is this area
The
called, Ashna?
celestial gods there sing beautiful melodies in tunes and play instruments to celebrate God's Keval
And what are these
There is a
instruments?
soothing
Bindu.
mild breeze, and celestial gods from sky shower beautiful and special kalpavriksha aromatic flowers
And what are
like
these
mandar, nameru,
Pahupanti Varsha?
suparija,
That's one of the
santanak, etc.
right?
Every moment there is soothing showers and droplets of Gandoda, the
Mm.
divine water. Entire earth becomes crystal clean and clear like glass. There are no thorns. Trees bear fruits of all 6 seasons.
Oh, yeah,
Nobody
this is interesting, right? So in the area around wherever Samosharan happens, there is like there is so much of bliss, worldly bliss, right? So for 12 kilometers or not 12, it's not exact kilometer, it's yojan. You know yojan, the unit of distance. So for that much of space, there is so much of worldly uh, bliss around, right? So, I mean, all the fruit trees bear all fruits, even if it's not the season. That's why. So there are 6 seasons in the Indian culture, and all those 6 seasons, fruits of all those 6 seasons happen at the same time.
Nobody's hungry in 12 kilometers radius of God. Nobody's sad. All beings become friendly with one another. All deaf, dumb, etc. Everybody gets cured. God gives sermons 4 times in the day,
How
in
many
morning,
times? Four
afternoon,
times.
evening, and midnight, which is known as Divya Dvani.
And what is it
Okay,
called?
tell me,
Divyadhani.
in
Divyadhani
which language
Kirti
is
hai.
God's
Listen there.
Divya Dvani?
That's one of the
Meaning his
Prakriti.
religious sermons narrated? Array, this special sermon in not in any language. Yet, automatically, everyone understands it in their respective language. Isn't it amazing?
You know about this, right? And this is a very grand illusion that happens out there, that Bhagwan's Vani is not any in any particular language. It is like Omkar Vani. It's like Om, and it's not like Bhagwan is reciting Om, Om, Om continuously. It happens from all through his body because he's attained that purest state of Keval Gyan. है ना? So that's what happens. And then it is the Gandhars who are sitting around who are so knowledgeable and have so much of wisdom. Wisdom, wisdom, wing, 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 Mati Gyan, है ना? Mati Gyan, so much of Mati Gyan and so much of Shrut Gyan that they can convert that Omkar Dhvani into languages that each of them can hear, right? Like scorpion in his own language, snake in his own language, you know, lion in his own language, and human beings, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, English, Japanese, Russian, all kind of languages, and many more which are not no longer spoken yet. Okay, so that's what happens. That's all happens in the Samosharan. Where what is this grand structure where the sermon happens? Bhagwan's sermon happens is called Samosharan.
You know the way our Muni Maharaj, meaning Jain monks, do vihar? They move from one place to another to give religious sermons in the same way for the betterment of our lives. Their Thankars also do vihar to preach nice and beautiful things about Dharma. During vihar, Dharma Chakra
What is
means
this
a
thing?
special
Yeah,
spinning wheel and 8 types of Mangal Dravya, meaning 8 beautiful things that indicate happiness,
these are
walk
Mangal
ahead of their
Dravya.
Thankar god. Celestial gods from heaven shower Swarnakamal, meaning lotus flowers of gold, on God's feet to show their respect and welcome God. But does God walk on these flowers?
What do you
No.
think? Bhagwan walks on this sea. So how does he walk? He floats. And so how high is floating? Four ungli, char ungli, है ना? He's four ungli high and he's floating, right? Right, Ashna? He doesn't walk even on the flowers. Now again, because it's not like it's required. Bhagwan doesn't care about where you are putting flowers or thorns in his path. It is us, the worldly people, the Dev, who want to, do the best. That's their way of expressing their joy and their happiness and their, humility towards Bhagwan. है ना?
They walk at a height of 4 fingers above the flowers. They do vihar from sky. Tell me one thing. The special grand arrangement that Kuber god did of Samosaran, what happened to that when God did vihar?
Hmm.
Well, what that was
So
it?
what happens? What do you think, Ishna? What happens to the Samoshan when Bhagwan does his vihar? He moves over to the next place. Very good. Who makes another Samoshan? Yes, Kuber Dev, right? Good job, Ishna. It's not Saudharmind, it's Kuber Dev. Yes, you are right. So, the Kuber Dev, it's a grand allusion, right? So, Kuber Dev kind of, takes away the Samosharan from that place and move on to the next one, है ना? And create Samosharan there again. Oh yeah, it's all his magical power. It's all his Maya. See, Devs have lot of Maya. They have lot of magical powers, right? So with that magical power, they can create these grand structure just like snap of finger. That's what happens. And then take and two. It goes away. Yes, that's how it happens. And
Left behind and God left for vihar? Hmm. So while on Vihar, the place where God takes a stopover, super rich Kuber God creates another Samosaran right there.
He's super
Wow,
rich.
right?
Money,
And
money.
the celestial gods do this to celebrate God's Kalyanak. So, like this, Rishabdev God, while giving religious preachings during his vihar, reached
Yes.
a mountain named Kailash. After reaching there, he started Yog Nirod, meaning he sat there silently without any movement.
Yog Nirod. Remember
Now,
this one.
he was seated at Samosharan, and neither did he give any religious sermons. He just sat like a mountain, a stable mountain. After 13 days of
Yes.
Yog
Which
Nirod
mountain
came
is
the
that?
special day when, you tell me what happened? On Chaturdashi, God did special Shukla Dhyan, meaning the purest meditation, and made his soul the purest. His soul left his body, directly going to Siddhashila. God's body just disappeared.
So see, now we talked about the Gyan Kalyanak. Gyan Kalyanak happens when the sermon happens, when the Divya Vadi Kirti hai na? Hai na? First time, right? So that is Gyan Kalyanak. After that, the sermon happens several places, and every place Samosharan happens, created by Kuber, right? But then finally, when Bhagwan's Ayu Karma is over, his age karma is over, about to get over, about that time he is reaching that final place. Okay, with and that final place in case of Bhagwan Rishabdev is Kailash Parvat. Oh, yeah, Astapad. Good job. Extra marks for that, Samyan. Astapad or Kailash, right? So that's where Rishabdev Bhagwan's, and I should now say Arihant Rishabdev reaches. And then what happens? When he reaches there, he does Yog Nirod for for how many days? For 13 days. For one full fortnight, he continuously do that Yog Nirod. There is no Samosharan there happening. Like there is no sermon happening there. He just focuses, go inward, 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 inward. And finally, on the 14th day, the Chaturdashi, Bhagwan Rishabdev attains moksha. That is, yes, his body disintegrates except his hairs and nails. Very good. Except that everything just vanishes. And his soul goes where? To moksha, to Siddhashila. Good job. But हाँ, बॉडी पे लगा देते हैं. Awesome, Ishna. You know the complete story. Super awesome. You are so good. You are so good, Ishna.
Only nails and hair were left behind on earth. Well, what happened to God? God's soul had achieved moksha, meaning nirvana. At that time, all the celestial gods came from heaven chanting Jai Ho, Jai Ho, Jai Ho with their Maya, meaning their special power. They made a duplicate body of
So
God
what
and
Kalyanak
on a
is this
special
that just
fireplace.
happened?
And with respect,
Yes.
they cremated the body. There is a special celestial god Agni Kumar, whose
Which god?
crown emits fire, and the Agni Kumar celestial
Agni
god
means fire.
used the fire from their crown to light the fireplace. When the fire doused, all celestial gods took the ashes left behind and applied on their forehead, neck, chest, etc.,
Like we
with
do with the
huge
Gandhodak,
respect,
है ना?
just the way we apply Gandodak at temple.
है ना?
All the celestial gods celebrated God's nirvana. Since God's soul won't return, won't get into any gati, meaning any other form of life. God's soul had become free from everything and went to Siddhashila. And there is always never ending bliss there. There is no problems whatsoever. So, today,
So you know what path he takes? What is that center place called through which the soul reaches Siddhashila? Rasnali. Good job, Ishna. Ishna, you know so much. You can teach it instead of me. Maybe next time. Good job, Ishna. Very nice.
today we learned about Keval Gyan and Nirvan Kalyanak. And now we know about all five
So
grand
Moksha Kalyanak is
celebrations in
also
the
called
life of
Nirvan Kalyanak.
Tirthankar.
है ना?
right? So if there is any Panchkalyanak celebrations happening around you, then you should definitely go there and appreciate it. We all will do this, won't we? Jai
We will do it
Jinendra!
someday, right? Yes. Good job, guys. Very nice. Good job. Very nice. So this was one story that we covered today. Let's do a quick quiz, okay? And then we will switch to the next story. Okay, let's see. Is it Ashna who is going to do this? I think the quiz was already done, but let's see if we can just somehow. Okay. ज्ञान कल्याणक किसके बाद आता है? ज्ञान कल्याणक comes after which कल्याणक? In the sense, what 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 Kalyanak happens before Gyan Kalyanak? Very good. Tab Kalyanak, right? So first you have to become Muni, then only you can get the Gyan, right? Otherwise you will be only doing Arth Dhyan and Rodr Dhyan and maybe Dharm Dhyan. You will never be doing Shukla. For doing Shukla Dhyan, you need to first get the Digambar Avastha. है ना? You have to become a Digambar Muni or Arika or whatever. है ना? ठीक है? समझ में आया इश्ना? Good job. Good answer, Ishna. तब कल्याणक happens. Okay. What do you understand by Gyan Kalyanak, Samya? What do you think it is?
Ram Kalyanak is when Bhagwan gets stable.
Yes, when he gets Keval Gyan. Very good. So is the day when a Tirthankar child Tirthankar obtains Keval Gyan. है ना? Very good. Good answer, Samya. Okay, what do you understand with Keval Gyan? Is it a purest form? Is this the purest form of Shukla Dhyan? Is it destruction of all karma by doing tap? Is it when Tirthankar Bhagwan becomes Arihan?
केवल ज्ञान होता है
Hmm.
जब भगवान knows everything about
Correct.
it.
So
So
these
it's all of them.
so it is all of the above, right? So it when it happens when you get the purest form of Shukla, right? You are able to do that purest form of Shukla. When it is the destruction of all karma by doing tap, है ना? And then Tirthankar Bhagwan, that's when after that Tirthankar Bhagwan becomes Arihant. Before that, what state is he?
Prince.
No, Muni, right? तब तो हो गया ना, तो मुनि हो गए ना, right? Before तब कल्याणक he is a prince, है ना? Good job. Okay, next one. Where does Bhagwan give his first discourse, or where does he gives his discourse after he gets Gyan Kalyan? What is that structure called? The illusion. Sammo Sharan. Good job. Now, what does Sammo Sharan look like? Let's see. Is it has 12 different councils or sabhaएं, humans, animals, birds, and all kind of all kind of living beings, devis, humans, animals, birds come to the Samosharan, and the face of Bhagwan can be seen from all directions. What do you think? It's all of them. These all are characteristics of a Samosharan. There are more, but we are only talking about those, for the question purpose. Where is Bhagwan enthroned at the Samosharan? That is, where does he sit? Okay, now let's talk about it. Is he at the top of Gandhukuti? Is he four fingers above the Singhasan? And is there a Akshok tree and a Bhamandal behind?
I think it's
All of the above, Samya. Good job, Ishna and Samya. What happens when Tirthankar Bhagwan goes to Vihar? What happens to the Samoshana?
it disappears and then when Bhagavan settles down, it appears.
Okay. Now, what happens while he is doing the Vihar? Right? So, what moves in front of Bhagwan? Is there a Dharm Chakra moving ahead of him?
Yes.
Okay. Are there eight Mangal Dravyas that signifies happiness also moves in front of him?
Yes.
Does Bhagwan walks on these four finger above these Swarn push, right? So that's all of them. Yes. From where did Bhagwan Adinath goes moksha? Went to moksha.
Kailash.
Very good, Ishna. Kailash. Good job. Super. For how many did the Bhagwan Adinath did the tap or the yog nihar before he got moksha?
13 days.
And what was the day when he got the moksha? That was
14th day.
which is Chaturdashi. है ना? Chaturdashi means 14 in Sanskrit. Okay. Where did the Bhagwan gets enthroned after achieving nirvana? So where does he go after nirvana? Where does he go? Very good. Good. So that completes our answers. Now let's move on to the next story. Today we are going to do another story. Why? Because people are celebrating this Dashera and they are burning Ravans. Igaphis. Is it Igaphis or Ifagis? It's Igaphis, right? Igaphi means Putla. Anyway, so what do you think, Samir? Should we
No.
participate in burning of the Ravans
No.
Igaphis? Okay. Why?
Guys,
Why?
it's still himself.
Very good. That's one reason. Very nice reason. हाँ हाँ. Super good answer. What other reason can you think of why we should not be burning Ravan's?
A fire is
Mhm.
one sense
हाँ. That is all towards hinsa, है ना? So I understand. So make any other reason why Ravan's effigies should not be burned? What would Ravan be next life? Ravan's Jeev be in the next life. Tirthankar in the Eravat zone, right? In the Eravat world, not Bharat Kshetra, but Eravat Kshetra, correct? He would be Tirthankar. So, if his Jeev is so blessed, should we be doing the burning of his, No, right? So, still Ravan did some bad deeds, right? So, what should be burned is his bad deeds that he did, not his own self. No, not we don't have to do that. We just think of it. We think of what bad things he did and make sure that we are not doing that. है ना? So that is a way of remembering it versus burning the Ravan. है ना? Because burning would cause hinsa. That's not a good thought. That's like Raudra Dhyan. And we don't do inauspicious things, right? That's not Dharm Dhyan. We should rather be doing Dharm Dhyan, not Raudra Dhyan or Arthi Dhyan. है ना? So that's the story about. Let's see. Let's learn more about Ravan from this story. This is a very good story. It tells more about what Ravan is and all the things about his life. Okay. So by the way, who killed Ravan?
Lakshman.
Okay, because some people think it is Ram Bhagwan who killed him, right? Which is not the case, as per the Jain tradition.
So actually, Sita
Jai Jinendra kids,
was adopted
all of
by
you must have heard about Dasara.
Janak,
Janak. It was, but actually, she she was the daughter of Ravan, and Ravan was trying to marry her
yes, which is not a good right thing, right? So because he was not aware, right? If he were aware, he would not have done that. Okay, let's go forward with this story.
So today, let me tell you about Ravan. Ravan was a very brave king, and he even had knowledge of many
Okay,
shastras,
another thing.
meaning
Though Ravan had this big ego, but remember, Ravan used to worship Tirthankar and he created that, stotra, the Tandav Stotra in the praise of Bhagwan Vishnu. So, if he is such a revered soul, should we be burning his effigies? No, right?
Actually, he was once doing like he was a
Meditation.
meditation,
Hmm.
and he came and he thought that he wanted to be like a deer.
Mhm. Yes, yes. You know that story, Yashna. Very good.
That's how he did go to moon.
Yes, because he said, "Oh, I should be like this grand dev. What powers he have? Let me rather focus on getting those powers, and we'll talk about that in this story. Okay, so let's go through this.
Religious books. He had another name, Dashnan. What is the
Dashan.
meaning of Dashnan?
Because
Dashnan comes from Das, meaning 10, and Anan, meaning face. You know why he was given that name? Well, Ravan was brave in his childhood. One day, he took a necklace having 9 precious gems, which was guarded by 1,000 Nagkumar Devs, meaning snake gods. And then you know what happened? Baby Ravan's face started reflecting in the gems. So in total, everyone could see 10 faces. And from then on, he started being called Dashnan. When he grew up, he started winning wars. Many kings were under his rule. Hence, Ravan became swollen with pride. One day, when he was passing through a forest, he saw a beautiful lady. She was Ramji's wife, Sita, and he did something very wrong. He kidnapped Sita. For this reason, Ramchandraji and his brother Lakshman declared a war against Ravan, and that war went on for days. In the last few days of the war, when Lakshman and Ravan were fighting, you know what happened? Lakshman shot an arrow that cut Ravan's head, but something strange happened. Where his head was cut, 100 new heads grew.
Hmm.
Lakshman attacked him again, and the
Some
bow cut
people say
Ravan's
10.
hand,
Some
but new hands grew. Do you know why this was happening, kids? Ravan had done sadhana, meaning penance, for many days, and gained Barupani Vidya, a super.
Okay, which Vidya? Bahu Rupani Vidya. Bahu, not Bahu Rupani. It's Bahu Rupani. What is it? That is, he had the power to recreate, like, and this is not something you should be like, how is that even possible? Have you thought about starfish? Do you know about starfish? Do you know about amoebas? Right? What happens when starfish one fin is cut?
they regrow. But it
Exactly.
takes time.
It
It
takes
takes
time, but then this is exactly what we are talking about here, right? You know, so that he had that kind of magical powers called as Bahu Rupani Vidya. You know, Bahu Rupani Vidya is what he had. Okay, so he gained that. That's why he was when one arrow used to cut his limb, the limb used to grow again. You know, same like a starfish.
So if his leg was cut, he could.
Yes, that happened several times in the battle, and that exhausted Lakshman completely. What is going on? What is going on, and all that.
Superpower. And with this Vidya, even after attacking Ravan multiple times, Lakshman couldn't kill Ravan. You know what happened next? Multiple attacks by Lakshman weakened Ravan's Vidya, and at last Ravan lost his superpower. Ravan got angry and he called for his giant Sudarshan Chakra.
So he
Oh,
has this Sudarshan Chakra, right?
Not Sudarshan.
Yeah, you got it right. Sudarshan Chakra, है ना? So he called upon that power. Now Sudarshan Chakra. Now remember this. Sudarshan Chakra has three different sections. That's how he wrote it. Pay attention. You will find it. But most interesting thing about this part of the story is, you know about the Frankenstein monster story and that other story, right? Same thing here. See, Ravan had lot of powers, but he didn't use his power right. He got it only for his own charisma and his own curiosity and ambitions, right? And same way here. So he had these grand powers, but those powers worked against him, and you will see it just now. He didn't got killed by an arrow of Lakshman or any powers that Lakshman had. He got actually killed by his own powers, which got used against him. So when he threw this Sudarshan Chakra, and you know what Lakshman?
Did you Pradakshina around Lakshman and he went to his finger then?
Yes, you know why? Because Lakshman himself is what? You know what is Lakshman?
Narayan?
Yeah, no, he's not Narayan. Narayan is Ram Bhagwan. So what? He's a Balabhadra, right? So he's from that family, right? He's a revered. He's one of the Tresat Shalaka Purush, like Ravan also, because Ravan is Prati Narayan, है ना? है ना? So that's what happened. It is because he's a Balbhadra. No Sudarshan Chakra will go and kill the Balbhadra, right? So that's what happened.
A wheel shaped weapon with which Ravan had not lost one single war.
You see the
As
three
Ravan
sections?
directed his chakra to Lakshman, it emitted strong
Three
flames.
sections there.
Lakshman tried his best to stop it. Ram, Shugriv, Bamandal, Vibhishan, Hanuman all tried in their own ways to stop it, but nobody could stop that chakra. And then that chakra swirled around Lakshman 3 times and came to
How
rest
many
on
times?
his finger.
3 times.
Ravan was taken aback. He started thinking. Even Adinath Bhagwan's son, Bharat Chakravarti, was better than me.
See, because Ravan has all the jnans, right? He is a very learned man. Always remember, he is not a demon. He was born in the Rakshas kul, but he is not a demon. Okay? Yeah, that was his family line. Okay? Like Hanumanji was born in the Vanar kul. है ना? Like Ram Bhagwan was born in the Ikshwanku kul. Vanar. Vanar. Yes, that was his flag, right? So they had these flags, right? Like these native Indians, they call themselves Hungry Crow, and you know, yeah, that's their way of naming themselves, right? That's not that as in they are those. They are not hungry crows. They are not born. That's just way of talking, right? That's their way of defining themselves. You know? Same way he was born in the Rakshas school, and he was a very learned man. That's why when when he's realized that hey, futility of his powers, his Bahurupani Vidya went away, his Sudarshan Chakra is just going away, you know, that's when he had self-realization of a kind. Although he did bad deeds, so he went to third nerve, but because of his learning abilities, that awesome thought came to him. The thought of Vairagya Bhavana. You know, but it was too late in the game. That's why he couldn't get to the attain moksha right away because of his past karma. He has to bear the fruit of the past karma. That is what he's doing now. His soul is doing now. And once it's done, he'll come back. That's why we should not burn Ravan. Because one, Ravan was a great, disciple and of Jain Dharma, and a great Shravak in his life, early life. He was, he created grand poems for in the praise of Bhagwan, right, Adinath, and he worshipped other Tirthankars also. Okay, and then other reasons are also what we just covered.
And he, in his last stage of life, opted for deep meditation of the soul and achieved moksha, meaning salvation. This wealth and kingdom is useless, and indulgence is
So
going
he's
to make
talking.
me.
Whose thought came to his mind when he's lost his chakra? Bharat Chakravarti. So and mainly Bharat Chakravarti. He thought about Bharat Chakravarti because Bharat Chakravarti had same amount of powers like Ravan, but Bharat Chakravarti was in spite of being a Chakravarti, he always focused on Dharm Dhyan and Shukla and ultimately attained moksha. That is why he thought about it. You know? Bahubali, he must have thought about Bahubali also, but at this very moment, he thought about Bharat Chakravarti and the great deeds of Bharat Chakravarti, how he attained moksha at the end. You know?
Me lose this war. Lakshman directed that chakra towards Ravan. Like the thundering clouds, that chakra started moving towards Ravan. Ravan tried his best to stop the chakra. He showered a rain of arrows. He threw his Vajra weapon and even his sword. But Ravan's good karma ran out,
Right?
and that chakra cut through Ravan's chest. Ravan fell on the ground and died. Now, you know, kids, how uncertain this world is. That such a strong ruler of three kingdoms, under
How many
whom there were
kingdoms?
so
Three
many
kingdoms.
kings, and who was so knowledgeable, despite having so many qualities that he could not control his ego, anger, and bad emotions.
Right? Ego,
And he
anger,
was
and
killed.
bad emotions. Remember,
After dying,
that is
Ravan,
what obstructs your knowledge, right? If some teacher is telling you something, giving you bad feedback or good feedback, and you react to that feedback in a bad way, either you develop an ego for a good feedback or you become angry for a bad feedback. That obstructs, that builds bad karma. Always remember, when your parents are teaching you something, never show your bad emotions. Otherwise, what will happen, Ishna? What will happen? Yes, you will get obstructing karmas of a kind. It could be Jnana Varni, Darshana Varni, whatever, depending on the situation. Okay? So remember this. Hai na? Be good. Be good so you get more and more and more knowledge. Okay?
Ravan went to the third hell, where he had to bear extreme
Where did he
torture
go?
and
Third hell.
atrocities. Ravan, through deep
Tisre Narak.
dedication and
Which one?
meditation,
Number
had achieved
three.
Bahurupani Vidya. However, if with this deep dedication he had done meditation for his soul instead, he would have achieved salvation.
Same thing, right? If you think of Frankenstein monster or this guy who created elixir of life, to bring the undead, that fiction story. If they would have rather used their power to a noble cause, that would have given them more better things versus the tragedy that happens at the end. है ना? So that is what, right? It is also important for what purpose are you uh, trying to gain the knowledge, right? Are you studying just to get good marks, or are you studying just to be, a great doctor, or are you studying to become a great doctor so that you can help the humankind, right? That is what you should always think of.
But he did it for worldly wishes, and he had to go to hell. Even now,
Noble
people remember
cause.
the
He
victory
didn't
of
have a
Ram
noble
and
cause,
Lakshman.
है ना?
In the same way we show compassion towards a sick person, we should consider Ravan's ego and pride as his sickness and should
That's
show
his
compassion
sickness.
towards Ravan.
We don't kill a person
We
for
should
his
let go of
sickness.
our own bad emotions. And the way Ramchandraji did tapasya during the last days of his life and achieved moksha and became liberated, we should take the same steps toward moksha. We will, right?
We will,
Jai
right?
Jinendra, kids.
Jai Jinendra kids, a great story today. Let's quickly do the quiz and then we should be done for today. There are other quizzes, but we'll not do that. We'll just do one quiz, okay? Let's see. What is that quiz? And I think we just covered it earlier, so let's see. Okay. Okay. What is the meaning of Dashanam?
Thus,
10 faces. Good job. Right answer. Okay. Whose name was Dashanam? Whose name was Dashanam? That's a simple question. Okay. Whom did Ravan kidnap while passing through the
Sita.
jungle? Good job. Good job. Simple answer. Okay. Uh, which power did Ravan obtain by doing tapasya? What? Krishna, you are a super sharp girl. That's what's Bahurupani Vidya. Very good. Okay. Ravan, okay. How many circles did the Ravan Chakra thrown by Ravan do to Lakshman? How? Three, right? Good job. Okay. How many? Ravan was king of how many Khan? How many king? Three. Good job. Three is the right answer. Who killed Ravan?
Lakshman.
Good job. Where did Ravan go after death? Which Narakeshna? Third Narak. Okay. Which king was remembered by Ravan when he realized the reality of death? Very good. Okay. Why should we not burn the effigy of Ravan? It's effigy, not effigy. Effigy, right? Effigy. Why shouldn't we not burn the effigy of Ravan?
Because
Because
He's,
one reason.
he's gonna be Tirthankara de Ravachitra.
Yes, that's one reason. But let's see what is the reason in this here. One reason you already gave, Ishna, to prevent violence of against innumerable Jeeves. And a second is, instead of hating Ravan, we should learn from his bad deeds, right? We covered that. And then we should learn to stay away from anger and other bad things from the story of Ravan, right? So that means only above, right? Right? Okay. And then, of course, because he is a blessed soul, right? First of all, he was a big bhakt of Bhagwan, and second, he will become a Tirthankar in the next life. What do we learn from the story of Ravan? What do we learn from the story of Ravan? Okay, we should leave our worldly desires and should work hard to achieve the path of moksha. Okay, that is important. Worldly desires, leaving them is important. Okay, so that kind of completes the stories, and I think you already know about the Pratiharyas also, right? So there is a good quiz here, which we did earlier, which is around the Ast Pratiharyas. So I would strongly recommend kids that you do that quiz and the other quiz and submit them on time. With that, let's call it a good Dharm Dhyan session today and end the session with Namo Vajayanam Namo Loe Savasahunam Eso Panchinamo Karo Sava Pava Panashino Mangalanam Cha Savesim Padamam Havai Mangalam. Jai Jinendra to everyone.